This is Trinont, and this is Path of Exile Necropolis. We're doing a solo self-found run. More importantly, we're doing a slow run. To clarify, the reason it's solo self-found is not because I want a challenge, just because I want a fresh start. If I was to play my Necropolis League characters, I would have a bunch of hand-me-down gear in the stash tabs. And we don't want that. We want to do a fresh experience. We're running some kind of splitting steel duelist, shattering steel now. I'm not sure what that's going to entail, but it'll help the game be slow enough to talk about it a little bit. Last we left off, we finished Act 1. Should be noted we're still in the Act 1 town, because you actually don't unlock the Act 2 town until you go a little bit past the first zone in Act 2. So, we will do this out in the forest. So as opposed to Acts 1 dry, or kind of Act 1's beach, what am I saying? Act 2, it takes place in a lush forest, for the most part. The enemy types are slightly different. We have monkeys and snakes. Raid class does specify that the animals are in fact vicious around here. What's my accuracy still pretty high? Accuracy in this game matters a lot for melee. You don't want to miss enemies, you want to hit them all the time. There's even a passive on the tree that makes you deal more damage if your accuracy is higher than your life pool, which I think is pretty neat. Alright, I should change the filter. I have a bunch of filters I made to make it easy to for later game areas. I haven't talked about loot filters that much, but loot filters are not actually necessarily end-game. You actually make a text file that the game reads. It's not a mod or a UI or like an add-on. It's really just a pseudocode that the game reads as a text file denoted as a .filter file. A text document is a .filter file. The game reads the pseudocode that you can write yourself. Like, you can literally just write down the text and type show and stuff. Or more likely, you can go to websites that make the filters for you. Here's Caliph Headsaber. All he does is heavy strike. He's not really an enemy, a boss of any import. In this case, one way you can actually do loot filters is you can just go to the game's website and follow the most commonly used filters and just sync up with them. And that's what we're doing here. You can actually tell which ones are online based on if they're blue text or just the normal text. If they're highlighted blue, they're online filters versus filters that are literally just in a folder here. We're not using the folder ones just yet. Alright, Act 2 Town. So the story so far is we've made it to Act 2. We've broken through to Mervale. Hey Lordy. Welcome to the slow playthrough of PoE. It's kind of like a let's play of some sort of playthrough, but I will be interacting with the chat and talking about not only the game, but if anybody has any suggestions about game stuff, I'm open to talking about it. But yeah, oh, you got a Greater Life Flask. These start dropping at level 12. Flasks kind of have higher and higher increments of when they drop, like you get a level 1 small flask, level 3 medium, Level 6 large, level 12 greater. I think it goes from 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 to 30. So like roughly increments of 6. And flask cap out at level 65. But you really just want to get the level 60 flask and you're done, for reasons that I'll get to when we get there. While I'm here, we do have 3 medium flasks, and there is a vendor recipe, or Roderick Cube for those Diablo 2 knowers. Turn 3 flasks into a bigger flask.
Speak. Going.
So one thing about Act 2 in PoE is it's kind of the oldest content in the game, or some of the oldest. Act 1 got a rework, Act 2 kind of got a rework, but a lot of it's very old. Like, this is some of the first content in PoE, and so we'll get to see what the game looks like, kind of, with its age. There are some differences, though, but I think the result is that Act 2 is kind of a mess. I definitely can see a lot of people falling off here. I know a lot of people I try to introduce to the game get bored around Act 2, which is a shame because I think it picks up in Act 3, but not for everybody. There is a person with an orange exclamation mark as opposed to the standard yellow exclamation mark. This is Einhar. One thing about Path of Exile is it has years and years of content added to it, some of it being minigames. And Einhar is essentially inspired by Pokemon, though I would compare it more to Monster Hunter, where Einhar will go out and find beasts, you will lower the beasts to low health, and then Einhar will net them for you, and then you get to kill them for loot. In Menagerie, we'll get to that when Einhar appears. He's guaranteed to appear in the Riverways, but but he'll appear randomly in Act 2 as well. And that's a good point. At least Act 2 isn't a desert, I swear. That trope is way too tired in action RPGs. Like, I feel like I can count on one hand the amount of action RPGs that don't do a desert as Act 2. It's really... Like, even PoE 2 apparently is going to have Act 2 as a desert, and it's like, why? Don't do it. You can resist. At least make the desert interesting. Admittedly, PoE's 2 desert does look slightly different. Like, it has a giant mammoth boneyard, and still it's a desert. Why? Why did you do this to us? But yeah, Act 2 breaks convention instead of a temperate... In fact, PoE does break convention. Most RPGs, Act 1's a forest, Act 2's a desert, Act 3's a jungle. Or, Act 3 usually diverges, but I'd say Act 3's the jungle, Act 4 is the climax, but thankfully that hasn't happened here. Alright, so, another thing about Act 2, it is split into 2 directions, and there is a lot of choice in Act 2, for better or worse. Act 2 is also where they introduced, I want to say they introduced PvP. They have this quest to kill these 3 bandits, and spoilers, but you can choose to side with one of the bandits, and if the other players in your party don't, you have to fight them along with the bandit. And depending on if you spare, which one you spare, if you kill all of them, you get a different reward. And we'll go into that when we get there. Vendor characters in town. Groose is our armor vendor. Aramir is just a war person. Silk, kind of the same. Silk is explaining the main quest that we're kind of given initially to open up the passage from the beach to the forest. And Silk's like, yeah, I saw some Oriathan soldiers, or, well, people like you, going west, which implies that that's where Piety, the character that blocked the road, is, so we have to go west. And then Nina's our wand, our magic and potion and skill gem vendor. So we have a few quests now. It used to be that the game did not tell you which quests were optional, but now they do. They highlight the optional quests in blue and the mandatory quests in kind of a light yellow. And orange quests are minigame character quests, though they, funnily enough, there is a mandatory quest that is given by a minigame character, but because that character is from the minigame, even though it's a main story quest, it's still the orange. It's kind of an oversight. That's later down the line, though. Didn't explain the quest panel, by the way. Fun fact, so I feel like this quest panel is really inspired by Diablo 2, which had a kind of a similar thing. Instead of a map, it had these icons you could click that told you what they do, and when they completed, they would flash, and it would make a glowy noise, or a glowy flash and make a noise of like a bell ringing, and you completed a quest. It had fun icons. This game kept the fun icons, but instead of them being center first, they have a mini-map showing all the places you can warp to. So they kind of merged the mini-map, the waypoint selector, and the quest icon in one button. Same hotkey as Diablo 2, but fun fact. And if you click on a quest icon, it shows you which general direction you need to go. In this case, we would need to go right, and somewhere in this region there's a cave. Well, the other thing I want to talk about with Act 2 is that we have choice. The game's main quest says to go left. Ironically, I would say for repeat playthroughs, which is just kind of what it's supposed to be, you want to actually complete all the stuff in the right. It's just easier for a couple of reasons. So we're going to go to the old fields. Einhar hasn't appeared. There's a chance he appears, it's not guaranteed. It's pretty high, though. Monster level pack, okay. You may notice that the bears here are kind of shimmering with a steel color. That's actually part of an effect called Impale. All of the steel skills and a lot of physical attacks that you can have the Impale effect on them, be it from a support gem or just inherently. Impale essentially leaves little shards in an enemy, and for the next 5 hits, a portion of the damage you dealt from the first hit will carry over for the later hits. So like it's a stacking damage attack, stacking like procced attack. Be leveled, by the way. Impale was not initially in the game. I think it was added. Ooh, let's see. I actually forget which league it was added. It was added when the steel skills were added. Only recently, but the steels, I think last league, steel skills actually used to have an additional bonus called Call of Steel, where you could recall all the impales on enemies and just damage them and just summon them back to you to damage enemies again. The steel skills kind of had an ammo system where you have shards of steel that would you could recall with and get all your impales back along with the shards. They got rid of that kind of. You can still find those skills in the game, but they're later down the line. They reworked some of the way skill gems work, and that's one of the things they reworked with it. So, normally I wouldn't do this because it's optional, but we're going to go to the Great White Beast quest. That's found somewhere in this area. There's also a giant block monster called Nice, spelled like the rock, not like you know not like you're doing a nice thing, but more that you're holding a nice rock. could still be a nice rock, but still. Ooh. Chain belt's nice too. You may notice that this looks like a waypoint and there's a rock on top of it, so it's not working. That's an illusion. That's foreshadowing, believe it or not. Here's the den. And because this league mechanic basically adds every area has monsters in it, we'll just do this. Every area has modifiers to certain packs of monsters. Oh. It's kind of an annoying mechanic for some people because it makes the game technically harder. Though it can make it more rewarding, because like some packs might get higher damage mods. But you do get some occasional mods that just give flat rewards, and the harder the monsters, more likely they are to drop corpses, which is the seasonal mechanic, the league mechanic. And the corpses can be used for very powerful crafts. It's actually really broken in this league. The items you can make in this game or in this particular league are just absolutely busted. It's dangerous to open up an ambush box, those strong boxes, without identifying them first. Oh, fun fact, you can craft on these strong boxes if you come across them. They are craftable material, weirdly enough. Which is kind of neat. It's not really used much, but it can be done. Well, one of the modifiers, so you craft and you get modifiers in the strong box. One of them can be freezes you when you click it. And being frozen is very bad when you've just summoned a giant pack of monsters, especially since one of the other modifiers you can find out is detonate corpses. So if you've just killed a bunch of monsters next to the strong box, then you're frozen, and then it blows up in front of you. Well, that's just a bad time. One of the most deadly mechanics in this game is actually corpse exploding, because it can often happen in bursts, and you can get kind of shotgunned by all of the exploding corpses at once, and it will, standing in a pack of explosions, does tend to murder you in this game. More so than other games in this genre. Alright. Spectral Throw. I don't really need any of these. These are all skill gems. Spectral Throw has quality on it, so I'll pick it up. I kind of want to pick up Smite for the lull, but there's no reason to pick those up right now. One mistake people make is because skill gems are highlighted in a different color coding than a lot of other stuff. People think they're valuable initially, but they're really not. Unless the skill gem has quality on it, there's usually very little reason to pick up a skill gem. You can, unless you're playing in the game mode where they don't drop or they aren't purchasable. But since you can, oh yeah, this is our first unique, but first off, skill gems. So since you can buy skill gems from from the vendors, there's almost no reason to pick them up. There are a handful of skill gems that can't be bought, but they are super rare in the game. If you have a filter, the game will let you know that those are rare skill gems. I wanted to get Golem's Blood, but we're not going to do that just yet. Actually, come to think of it, if I can get my accuracy rating really high... Well darn, I feel silly going this direction now. We're gonna go this way now. I just wanted to get some strength nodes anyways, but we'll probably get Command of Steel eventually. I think I'm gonna go one sword and shield with a sword for this playthrough. So, last session I mentioned that there's several color codings of rarities of items. You have normal, white text, like the Sapphire Ring is white text, so it's normal. Magic, blue text, yellow, I don't think I have a yellow right now. Yeah, yellow, rare. Rare is yellow text. And then you have unique, which is bronze? Is this bronze? It's kind of like a brownish, a metallic brown. I would go with bronze. Uniques always have unique artwork, first off. They Silk Ride here, sorry, Ghost Ride here is always going to look different from a standard Silken Vest. Uniques also are always a certain base, so the Silken Vest will likely be Ghost Ride. Considered it orange. Yeah, orange works too. I think bronze, because it has like a little bit more metallic, but yeah, orange, brown, bronze. It's hard to say. I guess orange is probably the most generic name. We'll go with orange. We'll go with orange since it's similar to. It's more color oriented. Uniques are not. Uniques are kind of deceptive for a lot of players familiar with games that aren't Diablo 2, because uniques actually tend to not be direct upgrades. Sometimes they're just downright bad. Ghost right here is actually okay, but the big thing about uniques is they do something special, like they live up to their name. That's why they're not called legendaries, for instance, because they're not a direct upgrade to rare items. They just do something special. Uniques that are relevant to build you're playing are going to be upgrades, and there are some slots that just generally benefit from a unique. But rares are often what you'll be using more often than not, unless you have a really strange build or luck into a lot of very powerful uniques. Honestly, if I didn't have a stash tab dedicated to just hoarding uniques, I would probably just sell this when I get back to town. Oh yeah, I should mention that there was a boss here, the Great White Beast. You can tell because there's a little spirals. The Great White Beast was that, well, that thing right there. That white bear. It was an angry bear. It's dead now. Well, we're back into the old fields. I like how the rare enemies had more health than the Great White Beast. That's kind of just the state of the game right now. They had a patch a year ago or so where they kind of made rare monsters a lot harder, unfortunately. Well, not a lot harder, but just enough to be like... They end up being harder than the mini-bosses sometimes, depending on what you roll on them. It does more damage on my Ghost Strike.
My spirit is spent.
Honestly, if you come across a rare monster that just takes too long to murder, it's just better to skip it. But I'm stubborn, and this is a slow playthrough, so we can just talk about it. This character has this monster has a floor effect called Trail of Lightning. Lightning damage causes an ailment sometimes called Shock. Shock is very dangerous. Shock doesn't hurt you directly, but it makes you take more damage based on a percentage of the shock. So a shock at 40% makes you take 40% more damage. That's actually quite a lot, because it's not just like... It's 40% damage on top of any other damage modifiers you might be taking. Oh, here's nice. See how the name is spelled? G-N-E-I-S-S. That's pronounced nice. I learned that in geology one time. I was always wondering how you would say it, and it turns out it's nice. And notice how nice took way less time than that rare monster there. That rare monster was just randomly generated. Nice is always here. You think that nice would last longer, but yeah, alas. And that's, and the old fields are almost done. You don't have to explore areas in their entirety in this game. I think all the areas are randomly laid out. Generally best, I think if it's your second playthrough, like, there's no reason to explore. If it's your first playthrough, you might find secret areas and stuff, or not know where you're going. That's understandable. But after that, it's basically just better to just go where you need to go. In the case of the old fields, you just follow this road that honestly doesn't look that roadish. Like, have you ever seen a road like this where it's just different lengths? Like, whoever constructed this road really had a bad measuring tool. They actually commented on the devs one time that their road generation is going to be a lot better in the next game. UE2, they added better road technology. For now, though, we live with the silly-looking roads that look like more like scraggly paths of cobble. Like, even without a measuring stick, you could probably make a better road than this. The crossroads tends to have some ruined house foundations with ancient etchings. They talk about the ancient cataclysm that you read about from the carvings in the beach in Act 1. The beach is told from the story of the Karui that conquered the coast, but then giant evil storm of zombie storm happened. This area talks about the zombie storm, which I think it's called the Cataclysm at some point. And it talks about it from the view of the natives of this area. Now, let's see if we got any better items. This is better. We'll take it. Skill vest. Cold and lightning. No life though, but a lot. And some armor. Eh, why not? I need lightning rose for the next area. I actually don't lose that much life because strength gives 1 life for every 2 points, so didn't lose that much there. Iron Mask. Ooh, this has a lot of life and some lightning rose. It doesn't have the links I need, so what I tend to do when I come across an item that I like the idea of, I tend to keep it in a stash tab. Now you might not have as many stash tabs playing through, but if it's your first playthrough, you can just dedicate a tab to hoarding items. Just don't be afraid to get rid of them later down the line. That's just a better sapphire ring. I have no idea why I picked up Frostblades. And Ghost Writhe goes in my dedicated unique tab. This is one of those purchasable tabs. It's actually really bad for hoarding purposes. Like, if you just want to stock items, this is not the tab to get. If you want to just have a collection case of uniques, this is what this is for. It's kind of just a luxury purchase, and I think that's probably the best idea for a tab. That it doesn't actually feel necessary, it's just there for showcasing. That's probably my preferred. If they're going to charge people for buying tabs, that's probably, I would say that's probably the best way they could do it.
What do you want?
As opposed to like ones that feel mandatory. Which unfortunately most tabs do. There are at best, a lot of tabs are mandatory, or sometimes just they're meant to be, but they end up being kind of useless compared to just like normal tab upgrades.
Return if you must.
Alright. Let's see if we can buy a sword upgrade from our friend Groost. Looking like we don't have access to it yet. We'll do it at level 20 or so.
Return if you must.
Ina is nice enough to give us our quest reward for killing the bear, and we could go heavy belt. I think I might go for a rear rustic sash again. Honestly, the reason you would do this quest normally is to get a second quicksilver flask or a heavy belt if you want strength. Heavy belts are a great source of the strength stat. If you are like a wizard but you need strength for whatever reason instead of intelligence, some jewelry gives you just flat strength no matter what the stats are. Heavy belts are one of them. Amulets are another source of attributes that you can always rely on. The greater life flask might just be a straight up upgrade, but Let's do Rustic Sash for reasons. It's not an upgrade, but we'll keep it anyways, because there is a vendor recipe, the selling combo, that does revolve around Rustic Sashes. That will be greatly relevant to us. Alright. So, let's go back to the crossroads. Ooh, an Orb of Transmutation early. You can actually see little ghosts popping out of the enemy types that are haunted from this League mechanic that was introduced in Necropolis. Little gray wisps popping out, gray spirits. Here's an essence, randomly generated. So, if we had gone west at some point, Groose would pop up with an exclamation mark telling us to go to a place called the Chamber of Sens, which actually isn't shown on our quest log yet, but will be northwest of the crossroads. You just follow the road, kind of. And honestly, we're going to do that first. We'll just assume Groose told us about it. What's great about this game, in my opinion, is that you can actually do quests out of sequence. It was not even sequence breaking, it's more that, like, you can go somewhere before you're told to, or pick up an item before you're told about it, and turn it in even without knowing about it. And that's really cool to me, that you can just skip certain story beats, because one of my grievances with MMOs a lot is, like, if they tell you to kill the Bandit Lord MacGuffin, and you killed them already, but because you weren't told to kill Bandit Lord MacGuffin, or kill the Wild Boars, the game doesn't count it, and I always got bothered by that. And I'm glad this game acknowledges that. Diablo 2 did too, to some extent, and I'm glad they took that cue. Another thing that bothers me in games like in action games is when they say to kill 10 deer monsters, or kill 5 rats or whatever. And like there's a group of rats in a cellar and you kill 5 of them, but there's like 10 rats in the cellar, and it's like, but I didn't solve your problem, the rats are still there. MMOs do this, of course, so that there's some, because you can't really get rid of the monsters permanently, because then the other players wouldn't be able to finish the quest. But it makes sense a lot in a game like this, where it's instance and story-based, to just be able to destroy an area, to clear a den, perhaps one of evil. You know what, I'm just not going to bother reading the lantern. I'm just going to assume that I can survive whatever the game throws at me. Probably not a great idea, but still.
I'll have to tread carefully here.
So, when this game gives you a quest to kill monsters, it's clear the area, and not just like kill 5 drop bears or something. Whereas, and if the game tells you to find these items, it's not like you find 4 pairs or something, you find all of them. And I always like that. I am pointing out that there is, Lordy made a good point, that one of the downsides, though, of the kill all the monsters quests is there's always a chance that, like, there's one tiny monster scraggling around that you didn't kill. You have to explore the entire darn place, again, to find that one stray monster. So that is, in practice, kind of annoying. I will say, though, if I had having a choice, I think I do prefer the quests to make sense in-game. That being said, I'm very glad that the kill-all quests are very limited in games. Like, they know that they shouldn't do them more than once an entire playthrough, or at least maybe twice. So like when say Diablo 4 has it as a normal thing in some dungeons, like one of the more common events to kill all the monsters. Well, that's like if a quarter of the quests in Diablo 2 were the Den of Evil. And it's okay to put up with it once. It's not okay when it's just a thing you have to do. So I would say, I like it when the quest is thematic, but I also like it when it's not overused. And Path of Exile avoids that, I think. So does Diablo 2 to some extent. Ah, here's a unique monster, the Black Death. Black Death is a spider. Spiders and snakes and various enemies tend to do poison. We are being poisoned right now. Poison is another ailment. Shock is an ailment. Poison is another one, where you just take damage over time. Chaos damage. Poison is a chaos ailment. The thing about poison is it can stack, so if you get poisoned again, you'll take 2 damage over time poisons. This is not always the case for other ailments. Bleed, for instance, the physical damage over time only has 1 stack normally, though there is another type of bleed that doesn't do that. There is an Ignite, always does whichever Ignite is the most damaging to you. There is no multiple stacks of Ignite. And since players can cause these ailments, you have to worry about that in your build if you think about it. It's like if you're running a Ignite Fireball build, you don't want to rely on hitting tiny little hits. You want to have a big fiery hit of Ignite. Oh, before I go down here, though the game's procedurally generated, there's in a lot of areas, little tells is where to go. And one tell here is when you come across the waypoint in the Chamber of Sins Floor 1, there is a broken device and a waypoint. You trace a line between from the broken device to the waypoint and treat it as an arrow, and it will point you to the next floor down. The other paths will dead end from this center area into a pack of magic monsters. So if you ever want to farm, that's a thought too. Oh, Fizz is extra lightning, great. Ever since initially didn't have this music, they reworked a lot of the music a few years back. I think mostly just to make it so that it was more in-house music. I think a lot of the tracks were more public or not owned by, or not as or more openly licensed, and they wanted to have something more permanent for the game. Which is a shame because I really liked the initial track for the Act 1 town, and the remake is, while still very good, just not... It doesn't hit me as hard, frankly. One fun little thing here. They added this league, is there's a room with just a bunch of skill gems lying around. This is kind of a thematic little jab at the game, because the Chamber of Sins was where a inquisitor named Malagaro was experimenting on people by shoving skill gems into them. In the game's lore, skill gems actually are considered not just a gameplay item. They actually have lore behind them. Skill gems, also known as virtue gems, or gems, I guess, are a source of thaumaturgy, and they have horrible effects if you put them on a person. But if you just put them in a weapon, they tend to give you special powers. Like, you put a fireball gem on a fireball stick, and you can cast fireballs. Whereas if you put Fireball into, say, a person's skin, they might just become a giant fiery monster. If they survived. And we'll be seeing a little bit of that handiwork later down the line. In fact, maybe in this area. Another thing of note is that since I found one of the Trials of Ascendancy in the prison, the Lord's Labyrinth quest has popped up.
Exile.
Lord's Labyrinth quest is the Trial of Ascendancy quest, and it'll pop up whenever you're in a zone that has one of those trials. At least for the... No matter if you've completed it on the League before or not. You actually don't need to do... I think I'm going too far down. You don't actually need to do the Trial of Ascendancy quest line more than once per league. People got really tired of having to do it for every character, so they made, okay, every league you get to do it. Now I do have to do it on this character because technically, though I played this league already, I didn't play the solo league, so it's different. This particular trial has saw blades. You're supposed to time the switch. It locks the door so you can't, and you basically desynchronize the saw blades so you can run past them without getting hit. You could do that, or you just hop over them. Or if you have a flame dash, you can blink over them. There's just... So honestly, I just skipped the timed cranks, the little levers, and just hop over the saw blades. Why saw blade when you can hop over them? Take these guys out. Necromancers are slightly annoying because you may have noticed they tend to raise the dead. Alright, click the plaque. We're free.
Between consideration and hesitation. The former is wisdom, the latter is fear.
My damage is actually kind of falling off. If you find enemies taking more than a few hits to murder, not counting rares, but mostly just normal enemies, it's generally a good idea to check in town to see if there's a weapon that you can upgrade, or upgrade weapons through various other means. If you're using a spell, generally the spell will probably keep in line with your damage. Oh, the Alpha Member Frogs. Now that being said, you will want to link your spell with as many support gems as possible, because that'll tend to boost its damage greatly. Whereas if you're running a weapon-based character, the weapon matters most. We don't really need... Since these rare monsters are taking forever to kill, I'm very tempted just to skip this area. Yeah, let's just not deal with those friends. What level am I? 19? Level 16 area? So one thing about this game is you get less experience if you're too low of a level for an area, or if you're too high of a level. So... Oh, here's Piety.
Does nothing clench that proud jaw of yours, duelist? Do share your secret with me sometime.
So generally, if you find yourself higher level than an area, it's best just to not stay around and kill the monsters. It's better to move on. So Helene is freaked out because there's this thing. Say hello to Fiddleitis the Morning. I was mentioning how gyms tend to... how horrible gym experimenters tend to turn using gems tends to turn people into monsters. Well, here's an example of that. Fiddleitis is an age-old monster that's just chilling, killing all the blackguards.
Piety was after a creation of...
Get the baleful gem. Meet Helena in town.
Piety was after...
Alright, do we want to pick up any of these items? Nope. One nice thing they added this league is, in fact, a... Oh yeah, here's a transmutation device.
I bequeath this transmutation device.
So that is dialogue voiced by Malachi, who... Malachi's voice appeared in Chevron's lair as well. Tend to read about Malachi whenever horrible gem science is involved, be it the Brutus character in the prison or Malogaro here. One thing they added this league is a town portal button. If you have a town portal scroll in your inventory, you can just press the button, go to town. Much better than having to open up your inventory and click it every time. Alright. Bruce gives us a reward for saving Helena. We will probably want Herald of Purity if Bruce is so kind to sell it. I don't think he will directly. But we can very much get another skill that we'll be using called Blood Rage. Butcher's Mark actually might be good too, for reasons. So the Intruders in Black Quest, the one we just did, that takes you to the Chamber of Sins, gives you a utility reward. Most all of these skills are either small auras that reserve your mana or buffs of some sort. We'll be taking Blood Rage, a buff that makes you take damage over time but gives you a lot of life leech. Very nice. We'll also get another quest reward, another gem that unlocked from completing that quest from Yina. Maybe after I sell some items, though. I have a lot of chromatic orb items to sell. Blood Rage, I don't know where to put this. Let's take out Dash since I'm not really dashing too much. I think all of this is vendor fodder.
What?
There we go. So, the cost of gems goes up as the game goes along. And the early gems only cost a Wisdom Scroll, and they start costing Transmutations Orbs. Now they cost Alteration Orbs, which we have plenty of because I was saving up. So, we are looking for a skill called Herald of Purity. One of the buff types you get in this act is Heralds. Ash, there's one for each element. Ash, Ice, Thunder. There's also one for physical damage, Purity, and one for Chaos, Herald of Agony. There's a few other utility things. We already got the one. We're going to want Poacher's Mark, I think. And Herald of Purity.
Be well.
Herald of Purity is going to be very useful, and Poacher's Mark will be moderately useful. I may have to look for another... I think we're still bad on swords. We may need to look for another... maybe a shield. Looking for gear that we can socket in gems to. Or I could just use a chromatic orb like a Smarty. That would be intelligent of me. Which actually the skill vest will probably benefit from, but I'm not sure. Yeah. We have a skill doublet here. Yeah, let's do this. We have enough chromatic orbs, so since we had an essence to be picked up, let's pick that up. Strength, Intelligence, Coldras. Strength, Dex, Coldras, sure. I think that's better, arguably. We'll vendor this. And we will use a chromatic orb. Now, because this requires strength and dexterity, it is likely to favor red and green gems. Now that being said, there's not a guarantee, but the gamble paid off. So now we have a full setup. Butcher's Mark, attack without moving.
What do you want?
Oh yeah, attack without moving. So normally, if you're out of range of an enemy and you click on them with a skill and you're out of range, your character will walk up to them and attack, which can be kind of frustrating. Now you can bypass this by holding down Shift. Let's say you just wanted to attack in place or shoot something that didn't need to be directly in front of them, but just you just want to hit in general. You can hold down Shift, or when you click on the hotbar skill, you can just check mark always attack without moving, so you don't have to press Shift at all. I like to do this for Poacher's Mark, for curses, and for anything that isn't a buff, really. The totems are a great example of this, because totems don't really need to be in front of an enemy, they just need to be around. Alright, so did the Chamber of Sins, did the trial. We have another quest to go through Sacred Ground. You know, gave that to us after, I think, completing Intruders in Black. Oh, Helena has a quest for us too, by the way.
I gave the Ebony Legion my faith. Piety led us into that.
So, this is another orange.
Journey well.
Another orange checkmark quest. Also, Helena tells us about Piety's plot to do evil things. And it involves using a baleful gem and a spike. I forget what the name of it is called. I think Malagaro's spike. To get into some ruins blocked by a tree, I think is the current plot.
I have story for you.
Silk tells us that the spike, yeah, it is Malagaro's spike, is in a den of spiders. So if you're an arachnophobe, I'm sorry. I know some people are, and while this game is top down and far away enough, it still has enough spider annoyance to be gross. Alright, so we'll get Herald of Purity on, which actually gives us more damage. Herald of Purity summons these little ghostly sentinels of purity on murder, and it also just gives us more damage. Blood Rage degens our life over time and gives us Frenzy Charges on kill. Frenzy Charges make you do more damage. It's this little green dot. You can see it spinning around my character. It gives us more damage, more attack speed, and more cast speed for each charge we have. We can have up to 3 by default. This applies to the other charges in the game. There are 3 charge types, one for each attribute. There's the Dexterity's Frenzy Charges, the Strength's Endurance Charges, the Intelligence Power Charges. Though they're not, even though they're associated with those attributes, they're not needed. Frenzy Charges are very good for both attacking fast and also just getting more damage out of your character. Now, let's see. Since this is also a monster level 16 area, we can just skip most of this, frankly. I was skipping it before. What else? Forsen. I'm not sure I recognize what that would be. I think this is just a duelist with Shattering Steel. No, we're just playing through the game with a bad character to make the game take longer. So there's 2 reasons to go to the Chamber of Sins. One is to complete the quest you're given. Not the Chamber of Sin, sorry, the Crypt. There's a quest to kill a undead holy man named Joffrey. That quest is actually kind of irrelevant. I think all it gives you is a respec point, which actually I should go over at some point. The main reason you'll want to go here, at least once in a league, is to find the Trial of Ascendancy. There's a Trial of Ascendancy over here. Oh yeah, every few levels, like usually level 5, 10, 20, and 30, a character will, your player character will say something about leveling up and getting more powerful. They stop talking about how awesome they are around level 30. So we are basically one more line of dialogue away from the character reaching peak dialogue. So we need to find the Trial of Ascendancy. I'm not sure where it'll be, though you can usually find it by finding, well, that skull is a dead giveaway, but there's also a book icon on the minimap, and that book is a bronze monograph that is always in front of every trial. It's some decree by the trial's creator about how cool you must be to complete the trial in order to be awesome enough for it. Let's see. Oh. This trial, instead of saw blades, has spinning blade pillars. They actually hurt. They're actually pretty hard to avoid, and they will wreck you. Trial hazards, the spinning blades, the saw blades, the spike floors, they tend to do damage not based on a flat amount of your health, but more of a percentage. And it's usually physical damage. So they can always be lethal no matter what level you are. Not sure the exact formula for it. Now that being said, they do count as physical damage. So if you have anything that reduces physical damage, that will be added to the, that will mitigate the trap's damage to you, even if it's percentile. And having a lot of life recovery will also help against those pesky blades and saw blades and spikes. Some builds are dedicated to going through those traps, which we haven't actually seen the main area where they appear, but some characters are dedicated to clearing them as fast as possible. We're not there yet though, so we'll talk about that later. I mentioned that the soundtrack got reworked. This is actually one of the older legacy tracks in the game. It's not from the current composer, if I recall. If it sounds slightly different, that's why. I feel like the current composer for the game doesn't... Well, there's two composers now, but it's unfortunate. There's not a lot of zone music being added to the game. It's mostly boss music. I feel like the boss music is generally very, very good. I like it. The zone music can be very good, but I've generally been more impressed with the boss music over the zone music in a lot of areas. I'm interested to see, but that's only because there's not, like, they tend to not add many new zones to the game, so I've heard these tracks a lot before. I'm interested to see how different that'll be in Path of Exile 2. See how much the composer has grown as a, well, composer. How much the music will change. So yeah, once you get to this little giant bridge, come across Archbishop Geoffrey the Abashed, who is a zombie bishop. Well, skeleton, really. And we're supposed to free him of his torment or some nonsense. He's guarding a hand. You pick up the hand. So I mentioned that weapons tend to increase your damage a lot with a character. That's true. But also having support skills really helps, like the Herald of Purity that we got in the Blood Rage. To attack faster, to deal more damage, to hit harder. Also skill points on the skill tree are definitely good. Alright, we can just leave here. I'll pick up the Sporting Axe though. It's not really better. Not to mention we probably want to use... Oh, no, we can use axes as well. We haven't specialized in the swords yet, but I want to say 15 to 29. Nah, that's not better. Let's just leave. And Nina will give us a nice quest reward.
You are... Goodbye.
Respec quests tend to give you 2 respec points, which I wanted to talk about. So you don't get 1 giant respec in this game if you want to ever respec your skills. You get refund points, which respec 1 point at a time, so you go backwards 1 step at a time. Which is kind of a hot topic among PoE players. Some of them really feel that the game's too punishing for new players, and that's understandable, because you don't get too many refund points by the end of the game. There's items that drop too that grant you refund points, called Orbs of Regret. They look like globs of yogurt. It's this thing's shaded out right now.
Hello.
Alas, we do not have any, but they drop more later on. So ironically, this game is harder to respec early on, but much easier in the later portions of the game where you're getting tons of items in general.
Exiles.
There's one other quest I want to do before we go to the... Well, 2 other quests, but 1 quest I want to do in town. Alina mentioned that we should go to a hideout. Hideouts were added in, I want to say, patch 1.2? Really early on. But guess what? You can go to a personal hideout. You unlock it on the... you have it for the rest of the game on when you unlock it on the first time on your account. But you get a hideout. It's the first hideout you get looks like a forest hideout. It's like hello.
Right. I've taken the liberty of performing a few. Journey well.
In hideouts, you can just decorate them. You can actually change all the places and stuff like that. Like you can move this around. You can move around all the decorations. You can add more decorations. A bunch of NPCs will live here. And also, very importantly, you get a crafting bench. Crafting bench was also added in the same patch as the hideout. The hideouts usually aren't a giant cosmic turtle, though. This is a supporter pack hideout, but they functionally are all the same. So the hideout you get for free works the same as the hideout here, it just doesn't look like a giant turtle in space. The crafting bench is very good. It is not really It's kind of a misnomer to call this a crafting bench in other games. This is more like an enchanting bench, where it adds exactly one extra affix, explicit affix to a skill. Sorry, to a piece of gear, assuming the piece of gear can fit it. So for instance, this sapphire ring can put it in the crafting bench and add one affix to it. We'll add, what's actually our, probably fire res, just for fun. And doing that once completes the quest. It doesn't actually give us anything. You could even not do this quest for as long as you want. There's no real reward for it other than just having better gear. Now, this Baleful Gem's kind of pesky. In general, there's two quest items that you get throughout this act in the first two-thirds of it. The Baleful Gem and Malagaro's Spike, they stay in your inventory as quest items all the way up until you go to the tree to break them down, and you need both. And the reason, probably the main reason, I go to the east side of the map as opposed to the west, is not only do you get the skill gems at a lower level, or earlier access to skill gems here, because the Western Forest skill gems are level 18, and the quest reward skill gems here are level 16. The Baleful Gem also only takes up one inventory spot, whereas the Malagaro's Spike takes up 4. So imagine having 4 less inventory spots in this tiny little inventory box anyways. That's one reason I recommend going east and completing all the eastern quests first. We have one more quest to do. Deal with the bandits. There's 3 bandit lords, each in different zones. We'll want to go say hi to the bandit in the east, Creighton. There's one in the east, one in the west, and one in the north. And we'll go say hi to the eastern bandit. The Broken Bridge. Broken Bridge is another follow the road to the end zones. Though theoretically, I usually say it's faster to just hug one of the walls and go and beeline if you can to where you think the bridge will be. Broken Bridge is a little bit of a field that leads to, well, the titular Broken Bridge, the namesake of the zone. Oh yeah, these Plague Wasps weren't originally in the game. They actually don't appear in the endgame, where every other creature type does. They're pretty much exclusive to Act 2, which is very strange to me. Aha, a whalebone rapier. It is much worse than what we have. What else? But yeah, in the end game, monsters tend to be in repeats. But Act 2 has some monster sets that don't actually appear in the end game, while Act 1 does. It's very strange. I don't know why they decided not to do that, yet here we are. So Act 2 does have a little bit of rework, even though it still is mostly very old content.
Your trouble. I like
Creighton here, for instance, hasn't changed since he was first introduced. Creighton, like I said, PvP character. If you help Creighton, you get permanent attack speed, elemental avoidance, and move speed. This is nowhere near worth sparing Creighton for. So we're just going to vote to kill. In fact, there's basically only one bandit left in the game that has a reward worth considering, and I think we're going to murder her too.
Pity your mind wasn't as swift as your blades, bridge rat.
That's Creighton dead. And we get Creighton's amulet. We'll need to collect 2 more amulet pieces for later purposes. Fire res. No life. But strength and lightning damage to attacks, and life per enemy hit with attacks. I'd say this is an upgrade. We'll need to recolor our gems a little bit, but that's fine. Alright, we'll do faster attacks, shattering steel. Oh, actually we'll do dual strike and ruthless. Faster attacks can still relax here, and splitting steel, shattering steel do projectiles. Let's do lesser multiple projectiles for the funsies. Steels can go there, and then we need another red gem. I'm inclined to do this. Yep, there we go. Easy enough. And we'll just vendor the rest.
Return if you must.
Let's see if we can craft. Now, normally, one thing you could do is you could take a weapon, like a sword for instance. This is actually not a bad sword. This is really not a bad sword. You could take a weapon like this and sell a blacksmith whetstone and a rustic sash of magic or higher rarity. And you'll get a weapon back that has physical damage mod on it, and so it does more damage. Really good for weapon builds. However, there is a lovely league mechanic called Necropolis this league that lets us just basically make our own items, and it's really kind of overpowered, so we're gonna just do it. Quality, explicit, and this is kind of a smoke 'em if you got a moment, where basically these don't matter if they're low level, so we're just gonna, like, later down the line, so we're gonna use them right now. Craft, weapon, sword, one-handed. How about a basket? Well, we'll do basket rapier.
May the ferocity of Throldana free you of your anguish and aid this soldier, and become a weapon to cut the wicked!
Alright, let's take a look. And how much damage is that increasing by? I think that's just more damage in general. 128. 156. Yep, way more damage. Unfortunately, our gem sockets are a little compromised here, so let's fix that. Actually, let's see. Let's make some... How about a shield? Actually, this helmet kind of sucks. I like the shield more than the helmet. So we'll do armor. We'll do a cone helmet.
So that you may allow them to be headstrong!
Headstrong. Get it. Alright, there we go. It's not really that much better. This fire res doesn't have life, but we can craft life on it, and it has accuracy. And Shattering Steel, keep this on. I think we can fit all of our gear.
You again. All alone once again.
Alright. So let's go left. What is my accuracy rating? 600? Okay. So I mentioned Einhar, Pokemon Master, is here.
Ready, Exile? This land is dying.
Usually, instead of throwing you in the deep end, they kind of throw you kind of deep in this game for any given mechanic that has any depth to it. The game does give you a quest that serves as a small tutorial. Einhar's quest is to capture some beasts. Beasts are marked on the minimap as these little bird skull icons. They come in two flavors: yellow beasts and red beasts. They have modifiers on them that are slightly different than normal ones. This one has spectral swipe twice over. I don't know how that's possible.
We will be best friends, Beast, until we slaughter you.
Einhar is a very much of a character. These Spriggans are another enemy type that doesn't appear in maps generally. There's a weird mod that on certain rare monsters that brings them back, but they're not normal enemies for the rest of the game. Which I think is kind of strange. Anyways, another yellow beast, Fury Tooth. The bestiary modifiers, Tiger Prey in this case, just all our weird special abilities. Spectral Swipe, little ghostly bears swipe at you. Aspect of the Hellion, that orange Hellion will appear and explode into fire. You gotta watch out for that, actually, it's kind of painful. You can't kill beasts, you have to wait for Einhar to help them, and Einhar was leashed across the bridge. You have yet to find the red beasts on the map. One thing you may have noticed about the riverways is there was a river in the way that broke over a broken bridge. Normally, if you didn't have a movement skill, you would have to go around, find a log or something to walk over. In this, if you have a movement skill that can jump over gaps, you can just hop over that river. It's very nice. Anyways, I recommend following the road no matter what, because there's a waypoint here, and the waypoint's very relevant. So there is a much more disheveled path always next to the waypoint. It's denoted by these two little bannerless poles or whatever. Those little pedestals. So you go down, so you take the road to this path, and it'll lead to the wetlands. Now the wetlands is technically a place you go to later, but it does have one of the bandit lords. I generally go here first before going to the western forest that the game tells you to go to for the very first thing in Act 2. And this is a higher level area. It's level 19 instead of level 16 or 14. It is designed to be the last area you go to before the tree. But I generally go here early. Also, that's an early Chaos Orb. Because it's more efficient. And though we are doing a slow playthrough, we are going to try to be generally routing an okay way. Oh, a second Grand. Oh, a Grand Life Flask. That's the next tier up. Yeah, Grand is level 18. Oak is in the north. Oak is... used to be a bandit that you would side with. So the game used to originally have 3 playthroughs before you got to endgame. So you would talk to the bandits 3 times. They would give a different reward each time you sided or went against them. Generally, Oak was one of the people you took because he gave a flat life bonus. He doesn't do that anymore, so we were going to murder him. The bandits used to be much more of a decision originally. Now, much less so. I think that was our first mastery we took. Yeah. That was a weird shader effect. The water wasn't loading in properly. Oak is generally... the entrance to his encampment is generally a little bit lower down. It's like on the second plateau of the level, second hill. Oak has a staff. He screams a lot, regenerates health. We're gonna murder him. He's a bandit. What's there to say? He does cast... he gets endurance charges, so he is actually fairly tanky. Probably the tankiest of the bandits. Doesn't do that much damage though, so kind of the least threatening. He just heals though, so if you don't actually have that much damage, it can be a long fight. Thankfully we have just enough damage, probably. We'll see. Yay, we won.
Well fought, Oak. A shame we have only the trees for audience.
This is actually a good amulet. Coral and Powa amulets. I can't pronounce that word well. Are the first types of amulets you come across. They give either life or mana regeneration, respectively. The amulets you actually tend to care about in this game give attributes: strength, dexterity, intelligence. Because the only other sources of attributes other than gear are kind of like your levels, and you don't want to waste levels getting pitiful attributes if you can just put them on a piece of gear that implicitly has it. So, well, life regen seems nice. Getting say 28 dexterity, and it should be noted a notable passive gives you 30, so it's already almost like this. At the highest tier of dexterity roll, this Jade Amulet would give as much as like a free level of dexterity. So it's definitely worth picking up attribute amulets to fill out gaps in your attributes. Like, let's say I was low on intelligence, I might want to seek out the Lapis amulet that gives a nice and wonderful intelligence bonus. Speaking of which, I actually probably should go back to Act 1. See if Nessa's selling Frost. Actually, she doesn't to the duelist. Never mind. Alright. See, I was wandering around here despite killing Oak because there is a quest I want to prep for. There's always a waypoint next to these tree roots. This is where Piety's trying to get into. And we want to get into there first, which seems counterintuitive, but whatever. The character motivations for Act 2 don't really make much sense, frankly. It's like, go into this ruin that the evil villain wants to go into. Why? I don't know. To stop her, but can't we just not do that? Can't we just hold on to them and have Piety come our way? No! That would make sense. I was going to talk about this thing. So, most of these currency items can be gotten from just selling your inventory to vendors. You can get wisdom scrolls, the orbs of Transmutation, Alteration, and Alchemy, even Chance. Chaos Orbs, well, Chance are slightly hard to get. Chaos Orbs are fairly rare early on. They only start dropping at level 15 or higher. And are actually the dollar bill of the game. Players tend to price their items in Chaos Orbs. You can't actually really get Chaos Orbs that easily. You can kind of get them easily at level 60 onwards, but it's generally not. Generally, this is a hard enough unit of currency to get that you just use it to trade with other players in at least a trade environment. We're playing solo right now, so we're not going to do that just yet. Now, Chaos Orbs, like every other item, do actually have a crafting value and inherent sync, and this one reforges rare items with new random modifiers. It's kind of like an alteration orb, except for the yellow items. I never really explained these currencies, have I? Generally, it's easier to turn a normal item into something than it is to turn a magic item into something than it is to turn a rare item into something. And Orbs of Transmutation turn a normal item to magic. Alchemy, slightly rare. Normal item to rare. Alteration changes magic items around their stats. Chaos Orb is the rare equivalent. Augmentation Orbs add a modifier. I don't know why they just call it affix or whatever. Add a modifier magic item. There is a rare equivalent that is much more uncommon called the Exalted Orb. Later down, jeweler, you have the socket modifying currencies here. Fusing changes links. More rare than the Jeweler's Orb, which changes sockets and then changes colors. This is most common of the orbs to find, I feel, the Chromatic Orb. Quality. So notice this Basket Rapier has 5 quality on it. Quality just increases the innate value of the piece of gear. If a piece of gear has armor, quality increases the armor. The Basket Rapiers normally have physical damage, so the quality increases the physical damage, so on and so forth. Quality can appear in a lot of places. It can appear on flasks. It can appear on skill gems. It can appear on jewelry, but that is extremely uncommon. That was actually not originally in the game. There's also recipes to acquire quality gear. If you sell 40% net worth of quality of this type of gear, say quality weapons that add up to 40% quality, you'll get a blacksmith whetstone, armor scraps, and yes, that applies to flasks and skill gems too. Don't worry about this one. We'll get to there. Well, that's enough rambling for now. Let's go to the riverways. So yes, grabbing that waypoint was really important because now we can walk back to the friendly. We can go to the Western Forest from the waypoint instead of having to go all the way from the entrance of the town. Sometimes minions explode on death. Cold explode, fire explode, lightning explode. Those explosions on death are actually fairly dangerous, because they can all stack and explode at once, and if you come across a giant swarm of enemies all exploding at once, they will probably murder you. That's a 3-link battered foil. Actually not bad. You may notice that these Alira's martyrs are not just merely bum rushing us and attacking, they are bum rushing us and exploding on us. That would be the handiwork of Alira. You notice these enemies are slightly more purple. I'm not sure if they're stitched up or not, but generally they're infused with explosives and are willing to sacrifice themselves for their dearest Alira. Alira is kind of like an occultist, evil witch bandit. The witch character that you can pick from character select has a few things to say about Alira. And here's Alira's camp. Now, I said there was one bandit worth siding with, and that's Alira. There's usually Alira. Well, we'll talk to her. You help her, you get 15% elemental res and global crit multi and regen. The elemental res is hard enough to come by that this is actually worth taking if you're leveling. But it's not that worth it, so we're going to kill her. If I was, especially since I'm probably not going to be a critical strike build just yet, and since I'm not critical striking, I might as well just murder Alira. Alira likes to detonate corpses, which does hurt, but thankfully doesn't hurt that much.
Spell the blade in your throat, isn't it, witch?
Let's see, intelligence. That's actually really nice. We'll do this. And you, Cold Rose. Not much better. And the Sully. Kind of better. Yeah, we'll put it on. Why not? We could go to town to get a reward for killing all 3 bandits. We're not going to do that just yet. There's a few more chores we have to do in the Western Forest. After all, the whole point of getting to Act 2 to the forest was to open up the path to the beach. And to do that, we just follow the road. And the Blackguards are here. The Blackguards, as the game says. This is Captain Arteri. Piety's one-night stand, I guess. There's even a note explaining that. Piety's like, hey, go defend this little seal. And that lowers those spikes. In fact, if we go this way, we can actually see the entrance to Act 1 from here, Prisoner's Gate. That road that Piety was so mean to us to block. This is, I think, the only instance in the game where you have to go to a prior act to turn in a quest. Because, yeah, we go to Lionized Watch, and we will turn in a quest that's actually pretty worth it. We're not going to do that just yet, because there's another chore we have to do. In the Western Forest, there's the spider lair that was brought up. And I mentioned patterns and maps. Alira is always on the side of the road where the waypoint is, or off to the road. If you notice, the waypoint up here was on the left side of the road, so we go left to find Alira, and then the Weaver will be on the opposite side of the road, and Captain Arteri and his thaumatic seal is always at the end of the road. There's not as easy of a tell as to where the spider den is. You just try to find the cobweb forest, and here we go. Hey, look at that, Weaver's Chambers. Weaver's actually somewhat spicy of a fight. You may notice this is a level 18 zone, and the Wetlands was a level 19 zone, so this is actually meant to be gone to before you go to the... before You go to the wetlands and fight Oak. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure how a player is supposed to go the proper order in this quest, because I want to say the even the Chamber of Sins is like all as much of a level or lower level than the Western Forest. Weaver's Den is kind of a maze. There's not that much of a real tell for it as where to go. When it comes to mazy areas that don't have any real distinction, my general advice is not just left-hand rule, but try to look at the map and see where the gaps could be that lead to a boss arena or lead to the next area. Like if I went up, I would probably hit the wall there, so I probably want to go down this way. Just got to get a vibe, really, for areas. It's not a hard science, though, unless you really know the tile sets. Which I do not. And we see the little icon on the mini-map, meaning we should probably head that way. Did say going up would be a bad idea, but you can went up and right. Kind of makes sense. Oh, another Grand Life Flask. We'll not use it just yet, because if I put this in right now, this would be an empty flask, and this one's already full. And we want to save our charges for the next fight. Aha! A Quicksilver Flask in the wild. So the Weaver makes a screechy noise, because as we all know, spiders are not silent. They screech, obviously, right? Right. Clearly. Weaver slows you down. The most dangerous thing Weaver does is shoot you with Chaos Spit. Chaos Damage Spit. And has a bunch of friends. Weaver originally didn't have as many minions, I think, until the rework to Act 2, or the changes. Rudely enough, these spider minions don't even give you experience when you kill them. How rude is that? Only Weaver does. And this is the reason why I do the Weaver's quest last. Because Malagaro's Spike is way too much of an inventory taker-upper for this early in the act, in my humble opinion. We're gonna play some inventory Tetris to fit these rare items in, not just because they're useful, but because they're rare and they sell for shards. We don't need these. Alright, and for doing all of that, Aramir is going to turn these amulets into one, I forget what it's called, Apex?
You say that I'm so sorry.
Yeah, the Apex, which is all three amulets combined into a whatever device. We'll figure out what it does later. Pretty soon, actually. Silk gives a reward for killing the Weaver that stole his spear, and he's like, keep the spear for whatever reason. And this is the second set of support gems that actually matter. Well, actually third. We probably want either... I think this is for axes, right? No, this is axes and sword. Close combat would be okay. So this is melee. We want to get... Actually, I don't know what we can get. Vicious projectiles, maybe? Or, Is that real? Well, melee fizz is kind of good, but the problem with melee physical is they... one patch a while back, while this does more damage, it makes you attack slower, and attacking slower feels bad. Rage is not bad. Rage makes us attack faster and do more damage. Might do Rage. But it only works with melee weapons. And again, we're not using melee with Splitting Steel. Sorry, Shattering Steel. So Vicious Projectiles, I guess? Because even though this has slower attack speed, it, I don't know, does more damage at net, maybe. So there is an argument for doing Rage with Double Strike. Hell with it. I want to be angry. Angry video gaming. So you get 2 skill points for killing all 3 bandits, which is definitely more than worth it. We're getting Precise Technique, our first keystone. This one is We never deal critical strikes, but we didn't have a high crit chance to begin with. And 40% more attack damage if accuracy is higher than life, which it is. We have 1300 accuracy and 500 life. So we never crit, but we just flat out have 40% more damage, and that is... Unless like you do have a significant enough critical strike chance, which does do at least double damage, this is just a straight up better upgrade early on, because you usually don't have high enough crit chance to make up for that. So, we'll get life for the next bit. And then identify some items to vendor. Not good, not good. Keep that for reasons.
Travel far.
So yeah, now we have 3 quest items in our inventory. It's kind of annoying, but thankfully we're not going to be dealing with that much longer.
Exiles.
But that Grand Life Flask I was hesitant to put on in our inventory. Can we fit a Grand Mana Flask on? We have a greater one. If I really put that up. Alright, do I have an Essence? I do not. We'll worry about this later. Actually, this Battered Foil... It's not going to be better than this Basket Rapier, so... Get vendored. Actually, since accuracy, we never crit. Crit multi doesn't matter as much. Let's see if we can get a War Sword of Light or something. I don't think this is actually going to be better inherently, except... Actually, it might be. We can probably put Fizz damage on this.
Return if you must.
Because look at this good stuff. What we're going to do is craft... Oh, we can't craft physical damage. Screw that then. But I mentioned that one recipe. I think it can be a magic item. It doesn't have to be normal. Take this nice rustic sash here. Talk to the microtransaction character. And lo and behold,
You want me to do
a serrated war sword.
as long as you're good for the payment.
I want to say that was more damage, or roughly close to it. Now,
Wipe your feet on the way out.
I was concerned about gemming here, so let's see if we can fit. A little bit of that. There we go. And we'll keep this around just as an offhand option. I'm going to vendor precisely 2 Town Portal Scrolls for Wisdom Scrolls.
Farewell.
And I think we do more damage now. What else can we do? And we leap faster, which is very nice. Okay. Trying to think of, oh yeah, we gotta go to Lionel's Watch. Turn in this quest. Vessel's like, you're awesome! Here you go. And the whole point of the story so far has been finished. That plotline's done. However, the plotline of, oh hey, evil lady causing evil gem science stuff to happen has kicked in, so the second part of the story is in, kind of. Stop piety. Why we're stopping piety, not really any reason other than altruism. It's kind of a nonsensical act too. I feel like Act 2 doesn't really have much character motivation, unfortunately. It's just like doing whatever the locals say to do. You go do some murder odd jobs. It's kind of strange, really. Oh wait, hang on. Since this has an open affix and all augmentation orbs are cheap, life per enemy killed. Sure, that works. Attack speed would be better, but who cares? Alright, and that waypoint's in handy because it's always next to the tree roots. We poison these. We go to the Val Ruins. Val Ruins have hinted at another fallen civilization, the Val. Aramir talks about them. The Val are not similar. We're a civilization before the time of the zombie storm that the other carvings talk about. The Val kind of tie a good theme into the game where rise and fall of civilizations is constantly a kind of recurring thing in this story. Oh, there's Rogue Exile. Rogue Exiles are like PvP character, or like kind of like rogue, well, they're rogue characters, essentially, Rogue Exiles. And they always drop a full equipment set of gear, for one, but for two, they are player character classes with player character abilities of some sort. They usually have a pet to sneakily tell you to buy pets in this game if they look cool. Anyways. So the Val disappeared mysteriously, and it gets implied that there was a prior zombie apocalypse storm or some kind of horrible magical cataclysm that ruined the Val. And then there's a magical cataclysm that ruined the more recent civilization. And that gets more elaborated on in Act 3. As far as Act 2 goes, we learn about the Val. They're ancient civilization. Their zombies and constructs are still around. The undead. That's the thing about undeath, it tends to linger. That's the whole thing about Raid class, the things don't stay dead. They just stay undead. So, one way to figure out a build in this game without actually following a guide is you generally want about 300 life, or hybrid of life and energy shield, every act, maybe more. And you also probably want some defensive utility stuff like the guard skill I have. You want 300 life roughly every act, so that's a very big rule of thumb. Emphasis on the vagary of that. You also want to get your resistances capped as soon as possible. Also, this is a fun little thing. Behold the Corruption Altar. This was added this league. Corruption Altars in other parts of the game have powerful effects that make the item permanently fixed to whatever it is that corrupts it, which means it can't be crafted on further, generally. So if we click on this, corrupts an item modifying it, we take this little triangle and we're going to put it on this, as good as this is. And it gave it a white socket. How fun. It actually is not bad. I might have to swap out gear for it, but... Oh wait, chance to bleed? What are you doing over here? Go away. Yeah, we could totally put this on. I'm actually excited for this one. It has life and chaos res. And now we have a helmet that makes us look like a Crusader Knight in a horrible bucket man. Did I? Yeah, my auras are still up. This thing here is a shrine. It buffs enemies or causes some damaging effect until we click on it, and then we get the buff. Actually not originally part of the game, it was introduced as a mini expansion several, like really early on, like probably on the 1.0 launch. So I guess it was part of the game as far as 1.0 is concerned. I like Chance to Bleed would be better than Rage at this point. Rage is nice, it gives you attack speed even on ranged attacks, but it's still not ideal. It would be better to have melee character going on, but oh well, whatever. Yeah, given we only get one rage per attack. So what's the point of the Val Ruins? Well, it's that exclamation point over there. Kind of gives a plot of, like, question of what happened to the Val? Well, two things happened. One is an ancient queen caused a horrible reality-tearing cataclysm, whose lore we haven't come across or areas just yet. It's actually a random event. Here's another shrine, the Brutal Shrine. Knocks back to enemies. And makes us do more damage. Very fun. The other kind of cataclysmic thing that just keeps popping up is Magical Grand Life Loss. Yeah, well, sure, we'll put that on. Is this ancient seal. I'm not sure how they sealed it, but we're gonna unseal whatever horrible darkness we caught happens.
Well, this can't be good.
It can't be good, Duelist. It really can't. So the minimap now has dark spirals spitting out from the northwest, so that's a hint of where we're going. Oh hey, it's coming from the zone over. Oh hey, Einhar. Like I said, Einhar randomly appears in Act 2. And from now on, actually, but mostly in Act 2. We're trying to find a waypoint before we go continue Einhar's shenanigans. I will pick up this crude bow. I'd rather have the chromatic orb. Notice the whole place is covered in darkness, which is probably a reference to when the area gets covered in darkness in Diablo 2's Act 2, but B, kind of a plot point of the Val may have caused horrible civilization-ending stuff as well.
Nothing.
And now our quest story progressions pivots from stopping piety to fixing our fuck-ups. Ah, two-stone rings. These are probably the end-game rings you tend to wear. Well, not the end game, but close to it. We'll be keeping an eye on this.
Travel far.
We can keep it around. If I come across an essence, I'll craft on it. Banish the darkness, so we'll just have to find out what caused the darkness. And basically, Yina's like, hey, there's a pyramid. You should go there. It should be noted you normally don't get your first hideout until you go to the Dread Thicket, which is off to the side in the Northern Forest. Hideouts actually can be unlocked in the game, it's just secret bonus areas. So Helena's quest to do that hideout thing would be to go to the Dread Thicket, but once you do that for your first account, you don't need to do it again. I don't think there's no reason to not go back to Northern Forest. One thing they added this league is that the forests now have rituals. Rituals are a end game mechanic, but they do appear in this very particular act, in this particular zone. It's just a little teaser to what appears in the end game. All rituals do is that when you click on it, when you click on rituals, the area becomes locked in this circle, and any enemies that died in the circle respawn, and you have to fight them again. Killing them gives this little meter here, and if you click on this, you get tribute. That's what this number is, and you can get favors. Favors are just items from the altar. Basically, you kill monsters to make a shop. You kill monsters to shop for goods. Huey has a lot of shopping options. I mean, this is ultimately a game about getting gear through various means. Weirdly enough, killing monsters is not usually the best way to get gear, though it is a catalyst for getting the gear. I'd say the best way to get gear in this game is through the items you get from killing monsters, as opposed to the items that you use items you get from killing monsters to make the best gear in the game, rather than make the best gear in the game just as a drop from the monster. That rarely happens. For instance, I might want to use the Chaos Orb to make a good item, as opposed to finding an item the Chaos Orb would make. That green ghost there is called a Tormented Spirit. It works similar to the Treasure Goblins from Diablo 3. It's a passive monster, it runs away from you. It doesn't actually attack, but it will buff enemies around it. And if it finds a rare monster, it'll possess that rare monster, or a unique monster for that matter. It'll possess them and buff them. Tormented Spirits drop loot, and if a possessed monster is killed, they get tons of loot drops. A lot of in-game farming strats center around some of them center around getting rare monsters possessed by Tormented Spirits, which enhances how much items they drop by a large amount. Here's our red beast. I think this is going to be the only beast we find, because Einhar wants you to find 4 beasts to kill. 3 yellow and 1 red. The dive bombing flyer is the beast mod. It's called Putrid Flight. There we go. A lot of rare items from that. None of them matter, but might as well pick these up. Einhar's like, I'm an introvert, come to my zoo. Or I'm not liked, come to my zoo. I think it's time to grab more damage. I also want to get Golem's Blood at some point.
Welcome to the arena.
Einhar is like, go kill monsters for loot, and we will humor him for that. Also, I want to say these Grand Flasks are an upgrade, so we'll put these in. And that is probably an upgrade, though we don't have the right gem sockets for it, so it's not an upgrade yet. Alright, let's vendor some items to Einhar. I think Einhar originally didn't sell items or allow you to sell items. Even has a dialogue line about it, trading. Oh no, he's talking about something else, never mind. You can actually turn beasts into items to trade between players. We don't care about that. For the sake of humor, you get 8 chromatic orbs from killing this pack of beasts again. So yeah, you fight 4 beasts at once for various effects. A lot of them create items. Some of them you put an item into the blood altar and it'll modify it based on the beasts you kill. There's even a few beasts that create a boss portal to a beast boss, who you then capture as well and fight them again for a powerful crafting effect. Isn't that nice? Now this Rage Mire's Caustic Orbs on Death. Caustic Orbs are a little dangerous, they do poison damage over time if you stand in them. And the dive bomb that they do hurts too. What you have to do is you have to lure them just to be on top of you and then run away. There's our 8 chromatic orbs. And Einhar's happy. And now we're going to go back to play the game. Alright. One more ritual. There's the unique mini-boss here, Celestlotha. I honestly forget what's special about Celestlotha. And this is the caverns. This is the next area to progress the story. The Dread Thicket also is in the northern forest, but it just leads to the hideout I've already unlocked, so we don't need to do it. Wonder if these bears got a damage buff. Oh no, for our first time we've come across all the more common monsters have good loot associated with them. They will not drop corpses, they will drop bonus loot, so that's nice. And we got a level, which is just great. You'll be using said level to grab more shield damage. It's actually not a great skill, but whatever. Here's Kuru. Evil Drop Bear. I think his gimmick is that he causes earthquakes to happen. You may notice these little bat things have faces on their undersides. Isn't that creepy? I'm not sure if they're just native to the caves or if they were caused by the darkness. I don't think they were originally in Act 2. I think it was just the bears, the squids, and the ghosts. And what's in the Ancient Pyramid? This was actually closed until we until we found the Apex. The Apex was needed to enter here. We're not going to go in that second half just yet. I want to identify some items and vendor them. Armor, cold, lightning. That is a lot of armor, but is it enough? I'll think about it.
Return if you must.
doing the good old trick. I'm at the point now where I don't really need to identify this many items, but I should probably just sell them for transmute shards, but whatever. It's actually not a bad shield for somebody else.
Going?
Alright, so we want these. I think the Cold and Lightning's better than this, so let's recolor it and get 1 green. Perfect. Now these are armor only base, so that's a little annoying. However, I have an idea. You get 1 green and 2 red, or 2 green. Yeah, there we go. We're gonna swap this out. Now this is generally a waste, frankly. You could just keep going, but you know, we're fun. There we go. See, and I just swapped the gems around this way. Generally, it's a good idea to not rely on the gem sockets on your weapon, because your weapon swaps out throughout the campaign. If you have a good chest armor that can last throughout more of the campaign, that's better to rely on. IMO.
Hello,
Actually in a pretty good spot now.
the Exiles.
Okay, let's go back to the caverns. Sorry, not the ancient pyramid. So one thing they added in the caverns, oh yeah, the second half of the caverns has skeletons and necromancers, Val characters of some sort. I'm not sure if necromancers are meant to be like undead themselves or something. Because like, how did they get in here if they're alive? It's supposed to be like undead. So I'm going to assume the necromancers are like some zombie creature types of some sort. That's the best I can think of. Death Bishop. So, one thing they added for the caverns is there's a recipe somewhere around here that's behind a secret door. So we're going to be hunting for a secret door. You were late, you were playing MTG? Understandable. MTG is a game. Probably a good one. But yeah, as of this league, they added a crafting recipe to the caverns and moved the old one. And the crafting recipe is like damage with Val skills or something.
I do love the stink of victory.
We're gonna try to hunt it down just for fun. But it's really not that important. That crafting bench in the hideout can be upgraded, or you can find more recipes. In fact, it's very often advised to do so. And
This'll do nicely.
and yeah, generally you'll be hunting out throughout the campaign and also the end game for crafting recipes. And I am sorry about your deck and the result, the disappointing result of it. Though I would argue in Magic the Gathering, sometimes even bad decks can be hard counters to slightly better decks. Sometimes. There's decent amount of hard countering in Magic, last I recalled. Maybe not hard countering, but like enough stuff where some decks can lock down other decks. I'm trying to be optimistic is all. So yeah, the exit to the area, to the zone we actually need to go to is in the north. It's actually the thing on the mini-map. We're actually not looking for that exit. The exit we're looking for is not even on the mini-map. It is somewhere else, and I'm not sure how to identify it. Exactly. Yeah, there's enough rules in Magic the Gathering to cause silly things to happen. Actually, that reminds me, since we're idle... Oh yeah, here's the secret. You can tell because it's a door, it looks like a door. And the way you open it, we'll do that in a second. It's actually not. It's, there's these little interactables, they don't even show up, and, that's how you find the crafting recipe. Val skill damage. It's not really a good recipe, so I can see it's okay to miss, but it is annoying to find. Superior Grand Life Blast, that's actually good. Removes curses, sure, why not? I only know about that recipe just because of the, somebody else found it, and I watched their video. It wasn't even a guide for that video, for how to find it, it was just like a playthrough. But talking about magic reminds me, one of the bigger inspirations for the skill tree, and a lot of the skill gems, is actually the way Magic the Gathering works. Magic the Gathering, of course, has the 5 magic spell types, you know, white, black, blue, red, green. So the idea of like different flavors of skills and stuff in this game really came from Magic, with the red, blue, green in this game really tie into MTG in that regard. And I believe the devs have gone on record saying they were inspired by Magic the Gathering's pentagram for Path of Exile's triangle. In fact, if you look at the skill tree, a lot of the strength nodes are on the... Well, the strength nodes are all on the left triangle. The right side is all green, and the top side is all blue. And they all have different... And the strength, dexterity, intelligence all have different like flavors of values. For instance, dexterity skills tend to favor ice. Intelligence, lightning. Fire for strength. Poison actually appears a lot with dexterity as well as like bows, and dexterity is all about the bows, and spells are more on the top side and melee's on the red side. We're in the ancient pyramid now. Turns out there was an ancient pyramid underground, hiding in a cave. I guess it's more of a ziggurat in terms of functionality for us, because it's not like we're going up slopes, we're just going up floors, but the floors do get incrementally tinier. There recently was introduced to the game a tile set called Ziggurat that has a very hard enemy in it, but that's for much later. I haven't even gotten to it yet because it's new. Ancient Pyramid layout's kind of a pain. I recall it's kind of hard to read where to go. The way the tiles are laid out, it's like there's several chunks, and the chunks can be walled off in pretty RNG ways. So it's just best to explore. Just note that they're all kind of square-shaped and they get incrementally smaller. For some reason, a lot of totems in the Val areas. These scuttlers are actually new, or relatively new. They weren't originally in the Ancient Pyramid. They were added in a redo of Act 2. They're from a expansion called Ultimatum that we'll get to in the end game if we get there for this playthrough.
What have you got for me today, Exile?
One thing I really like about PoE that helps my hands out a lot is I don't actually have to click every time I attack, I just hold down. It's not always the case with some skills though, I tend to not play those skills. Action RPGs like this are very much about clicking a lot. So minimizing how many clicks you do is probably healthy for the hands. And we are level 28, which is absorbently higher level than we should be. We should be like level 25 at most right now. Minimize clicks with ward loop, indeed. There are some builds in this game that really do not have you clicking as much. Really, I think in general the idea is like the more either a build gets very complicated or very expensive to minimize clicks. The general idea is that if you have to press more buttons and have more skill interaction, like manual clicking, your build will technically do more damage, but it will be a nuisance to play. So the trade-off is you pick a skill that's not as maybe not as strong without like gear and stuff. Then you get a lot of advanced gear and do a lot of theory crafting and maybe pay a lot of trade with players and spend a lot of time gearing up, and then your build is really fun to play without having to press buttons as much. That is not related necessarily to... where am I going here? Command of Steel. Intimidating enemies could be nice. But honestly, this doesn't matter, so... I don't want to just get more life and damage nodes. Probably go this way. Really just melee in general would be nice. I'm surprised I'm not going two-handed. People complain about the price of cosmetics and microtransactions in this game. Wouldn't one of your favorite skins was like 15, equivalent to 15 cents? So that would be 15 points. Because roughly every... or no, that would be... no, less than that. Anyways, here's the Val Pyramid. I'll talk about that in a second. So it turns out the Evil Darkness was this Val Oversoul. I guess somehow the ancient evil that the Val created was caused a congealed mass of what does this thing look like anyways? Like a construct made of the souls of this fallen civilization. Val Oversoul is kind of a robot thing. It has 3 limbs that it attacks with. One summons enemies, one slams the ground for a really decent amount of damage, as we can see that we're going to probably not get hit by. The other is a, actually the most deadly attack, because it's harder to avoid, is this lightning beam that the Val Oversoul likes to shoot. It'll also happily, it's not using it right now, but whatever. And then one attack summons enemies, and that's kind of just free. The lightning beam actually is the same arm as the ice spear. It'll choose between the two. It's also true the physical attack summons falling rocks. They actually do hurt. But apparently not as much here.
I believe in traveling light. A duel like no other. I think I'm starting to like this rank last.
I don't think this is actually good for us. Oh well. And that's the Val Oversoul. Now, if we had screen shake on, the screen would be shaking a lot. And the reason the cave, the pyramid is having the roof tumbling is because the pyramid's actually breaking through the ground. It's not really visually indicated that well outside of a screen shake and the floor crumbling, but we are introduced to Act 3. And the movement speed recipe that was normally in the caverns. We cannot go back, much like in Acts 1 to Act 2, cannot go back to the boss room from here. I don't know how the pyramid managed to jut out from the ground from before, but I think the implication is that because we killed the ancient evil spirit, it made this thing poke out of the ground. Like it ascended the pyramid somehow. We're not going to worry about that. If we go to Act 2 again, which we will, it's sunny now and everybody's like, oh, thank you for not, you know, causing an apocalypse. That would have been rude of you. But yeah, the as far as MTX go, there is a cash shop. If you buy points, and the game doesn't really deviate from this. Basically, every US dollar is it's something like what, 10 points is $1. So 50 points, $5. And I want to say what is the hack that lets you swap skills or whatever? There is one consumable thing. I forget what it is. But yeah. The cosmetics in this game are fairly pricey. Like if you converted this, all you gotta do is take out a 0. Like just a pair of gloves is $8. Getting a full body armor for a character is $25 to $27. Now, mind you, oh, skin transfer, thank you. Mind you, this is purely cosmetic. None of these are actually gameplay oriented. And also, these are permanent purchases. You don't have to, skin transfer 6. So this is 60 cents essentially. But yeah, long story short, the game, while it does have some pretty high-priced items, they are permanent. They're not trying to scam you. They're upfront, giving you a lot of. They're very transparent about like how pricey these things are. They're not trying to obfuscate it or make you buy more than you want to, which I think is pretty good. Like, sure, they all have sales and stuff, but the most contentious thing people talk about is the stash tabs. I would say though, if you buy $30 to $60 worth of stash tabs, you are set for the entirety of your playthrough for the rest of Path of Exile, including expansions, years down the line. You will not need to buy more than that. Maybe maybe $90 at most if you really hoard like I do. And you can spend more than that. The game gives you a lot of options to spend. It just doesn't shove in your face outside of this green shop icon and hitting the M button for map when you mean to hit tab or U. But anyways, we killed the Val Oversoul. The city of Sarn approaches us. There's very little segue. It's basically a non sequitur and story purpose to why we're going to Sarn. I don't actually know if there's any reason our character's going to Sarn other than just like, well, I'm here now. I honestly, despite playing all this time, I don't know if there's any character motivation for it. Gamera, do you have any?
Humanity has
No, okay.
that ancient.
I
I embraced them.
Yeah, I think the only thing is like we're chasing after Piety might be the vague implication, but how would Piety even get there is like what is going on here. Yeah, I don't even know if we would know Dominus is here. So like Dominus being the narrator from this character select screen and also the villain of Act 3. It is a very loose connection tissue here. So, in summary, I think Act 2 is pretty... Story-wise, it's very messy, is how I would describe it. It's a messy act. I think the age of the game and the fact that they weren't necessarily know what they're doing with this act. Like, this is a pre-release story arc here, pre 1.0. I think it shows a little bit. Act 1, they kind of had a good, okay idea going, and then Act 2 is like, I don't know, forest, just bandits. There's the Vowel Civilization's kind like probably the most interesting connective thing there. That there was a civilization before Sarn. I feel like, but thankfully, Act 3 really kind of sets up a better story in my mind. Really does a good job, IMO, of explaining what we'll be doing and why we're here and what's going on with the civilizations and stuff. I think Sarn, you could call it the lore dump, but yeah, it's where the story picks up, is what I would say. So we'll be looking forward to that. But for now, I'm going to take a break, and on stream we'll pick back up and do Sarn. At least I hopefully will. But we will end at least this little video part for now. And we'll resume with Act 3.